Good afternoon, everyone. So thank you for joining us on another episode of the Resilience webinar series. So today we will have two presenters who will be discussing the topic of rethinking communities in a post-COVID-19 world. First off, we're going to have Will Holden, who is the Managing Director of the Emergency Logistics Team. And Will's career has spanned over 25 years in commercial supply chain and logistics operations across the globe. And for the past 10 years, he's worked on numerous humanitarian projects. And after Will has presented, then Dr. James Haido, an assistant professor in structural engineering at the University of Duhok in Kurdistan region, Iraq, will be presenting. And James has 14 years experience lecturing and designing buildings in Iraq. As always, there'll be a Q&A session at the end to allow you to ask any questions. And I'll pass you over to Will now. Thank you.
Thank you, Eva. So let me share the screen. Okay, so thank you everybody for joining today. This short presentation is just going to give sort of an overview of the logistics role in camp construction. So background and context. Darashakran Refugee Camp in Erbil Governorate in the Kurdistan region of Iraq was set up in 2013 in response to the hundreds of thousands of Syrians who fled the conflict, which was ongoing since 2011. A mix of state and non-state actors were involved in the conflict, and when ISIS began to spread into northeast Syria, an area populated with an ethnically diverse group of people, Christian, Muslim, Yazidis, amongst many other groups, but mainly Kurds, who made up the vast bulk of the affected population. That was when that specific group of people decided to find refuge. It was this group of Kurds from northeast Syria who made the journey to North Iraq, where they were brought to a temporary site in the town of Bekma, where they had to stay in abandoned buildings. It was in late 2013 when the UN Refugee Agency, UNHCR, opened the refugee camp at Darashakran to help accommodate some of the tens of thousands of people who had fled the fighting inside Syria and sought refuge in northern Iraq. For those who do not know, within the humanitarian sector, there are different clusters. The clusters are groups of humanitarian organizations, both UN and non-UN, in each of the main sectors of humanitarian action, including, for example, water, health, logistics, and in this specific instance, shelter. And as per the shelter cluster themselves, the shelter coordination team, when deployed, consists of a number of clearly defined roles: a coordinator, an information manager, and a technical coordinator. Depending on the scale of the response, that also may require a mapping advisor. In addition, in recognition of the shelter recovery needs, it is possible to deploy a shelter recovery advisor, and knowing that environmental impact is a major concern, an environmental advisor can be part of the team. Construction itself is but one area of the shelter response. So in regards to the logistics department, let's be clear. The logistics department are not camp management. The objective of camp coordination and camp management, CCCM, is to ensure equitable access to assistance, protection and services for internally displaced persons living in displacement sites to improve their quality of life and dignity during displacement, while seeking and advocating for durable solutions. The logistics department are not construction professionals. The logistics department are partly responsible for the pre-construction planning and preparation of a site, working closely with and on instruction from the construction team. Since resources are always limited, you will regularly find there are never enough team members, and there's a large element of crossing over and supporting one department to another in order to deliver on any particular project. The logistics department is the conduit between the procurement department, who oversaw the tender document preparation, tender publication, bid opening and contract award stages and the process, and the shelter or construction program team. As with any construction project, it takes a multidisciplinary team of people who have to work together in a coordinated way in order to ensure the success of the project. This is the same over. The logistics department in every NGO is a support function, which sometimes comes with a management team with a wide range of sectoral experiences, but often they do not. And therefore, it is really important that the technical expertise builds the capacity of the logistics colleagues quickly. Within logistics, we have to be very highly flexible and be able to adapt to every situation. Logisticians wear many hats. Where the logistics team can be hugely beneficial, especially within a refugee camp environment, is around some of the key areas of the operations. It should be noted that we could have logistics staff at different stages of the project. Procurement could work on a daily basis with one logistics staff member who will understand the daily plan and follow up with suppliers. Another logistics staff member could be permanently based inside the refugee camp itself. The roles and responsibilities of these logisticians are very different. Inside a camp, there would be a large component of each of the following: health, safety, security, and coordinating with suppliers of the construction materials. Delivering goods to a refugee camp is fraught with danger above and beyond what you would expect to see on any standard construction site. For example, we understand the strict rules and regulations which, rightly, enforced on every building site throughout Ireland. These rules have been developed over a very long period of time and for good reason. No one should be injured or even worse killed while in their workplace. Again, rightly so. Construction sites are highly regulated to ensure that as much as absolutely possible, they are safe working environments. Duty of care. Now transport yourself into a refugee camp that has been in use for a few years. In the specific case of Darashakran Refugee Camp, there were, as you can see from this slide, or should I say, you have to see when you receive the slides if you so wish, there are a total of 1,824 individual plots. Each plot represents one housing unit. Between 2013, when the camp opened, and 2016, the camp would have settled into what is basically a small town, with all the services any small town would require. So when 2017 came around and the decision was made to extend the camp, and what turned out was another 651 plots, which you can see if you squint really hard at this particular slide, then the logistics team, which was at the time managed by my now colleague, Nihad Fadil, were solely responsible for the coordination between camp management, health, safety, security, and the procurement department. His number one concern at all times was no children were in or near the area that was being built. There's a lot of material required for the foundations of each plot, plus the internal camp setting. Ensuring that there was a clear schedule of deliveries over any specific period of time went a large way to mitigate against injury. He also had to take into account the fact that this was a living, breathing refugee camp, so you had to keep dust and dirt to a minimum. So most of you who are attending this webinar will have at the very least a basic understanding of what commercial supply chains are. They can be a set of highly complex, multidisciplinary functions which, when planned and executed correctly, ensure that their activities are carried out in such a way that the supplies of goods or services, or in this instance construction projects, are the right quality, best value for money, the right source, the right quantities, the right place, and the right time. These are the classic aims of logistics. Humanitarian logistics. The key areas of logistics which usually make up humanitarian logistics are the following: procurement, warehousing, fleet, vehicle management, assets, and distributions. So understanding the challenges. Very briefly, there's a few different sort of key areas within the logistics function. So procurement is a key one, and you have different areas in procurement itself. So identification and submission of the requirement, where the requester, or in this instance the construction team, will indicate exactly what materials they require, when they require them, where they require them, what's the estimated price, and the time on which they have to be delivered. The criteria for selection of any winning bidder, for example, is sometimes unclear and not consistent throughout the process. Lack of understanding of times required to complete the procurement process, this sometimes leads to tension within organizations, as unrealistic expectations cannot be realized. So the logistics and the procurement team and the construction team have to work very closely. Even within the bidding process, just a couple of points to note. Buying the cheapest tools and equipment, for example, can and does lead to more funds required to fix infrastructural problems down the line, otherwise known as a false economy. Organising site visits to each potential bidder, the same information and recording of all questions and answers, so everything is documented and on the record. And then we have a huge component of contract administration, which is basically the conduit between the procurement, construction team, and the logistics in the camp. So within humanitarian emergency logistics, so what are the problems to solve? The problems we have basically are varied, but these are simplified explanations. Inexperience and lack of training. I suppose that's why the emergency logistics team is here. We also have a lack of enforced standards. So there may be standards within any particular country, they're just not enforced. At the present moment in time, there's a set of universal logistics standards which are in development this year. We are taking part in that project, and they will go into what's called a Sphere Handbook. And the Sphere Handbook is a document which has been used within the humanitarian sector for the last 20 years, and it's in a constant state of development and redevelopment and improvement. And for the first time, inshallah, these standards, the Sphere Handbook, will include universal logistics standards from 2021. So this is an ongoing project this year, and the idea is to help small NGOs or staff in countries that will not necessarily have access to proper training. Also, a big area of concern is planning or lack thereof. Fail to prepare, prepare to fail. So within supply chain logistics, constraints and challenges, some of the usual constraints and challenges are communications and IT. Lack of connectivity is a huge constraint in our industry in 2020, even this day. Security concerns, whether it's conflict or natural disaster, humanitarian logistics still have to do their job. Very different to what you would have in a normal day-to-day construction site, for example, in Ireland. Infrastructural problems, roads, bridges, electrical issues. So far during this presentation, the power hasn't gone off, but if the lights go off here, it's because the power in Iraq tends to go off quite regularly during the day, especially in the heat of the summer, where it's hitting about 47 or 48 degrees today. So it has a huge effect on the load. And then a lack of resources itself, lack of equipment, secure storage facilities, phones, laptops, and even for the proper staff with the correct training and expertise. And just to give you some final context, we've mentioned about 2,000 plots, about 6 people, 6 family members per plot, so you're looking at about 12,000 people, individuals. So just to give you a final context here on this particular presentation, throughout in Iraq and Kurdistan right now, there are the present numbers. As per UNHCR in June 2020, there are approximately 1.4 million IDPs throughout Iraq. About 4.7 returnees, people who have previously had to flee, more than likely from ISIS back in 2014 and 15, and over the period of the last 18 months, have begun to move home. Syrian refugees themselves are still totaling 248,000 individuals. And the Darashakran Refugee Camp has approximately 12,000 people. So there is multiple refugee camps and IDP camps throughout Kurdistan and Iraq. Thank you. James, I'm going to hand over to you.
Oh, okay. Hello, Emma. Can I start now?
Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for joining us for this webinar. Actually, I'm going to present for you some stats about the impact of the online learning system after the COVID-19 crisis. So is it okay for are you seeing my
yeah,
presentation?
We see you fine, James. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay, okay. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the impact of the online learning system on our students at the College of Engineering in University of Duhok, which is located in the Duhok city, Kurdistan region, north of Iraq. As overview topic, the learning process is totally changed in the March in this region. In the March of this region, so is the online teaching system for the. It's very difficult for the maybe faced some difficulties in the engineering application and engineering learning. Especially we have labs and we have some practical topics that will be. So in this webinar, I'll show you some outcome for the questionnaire. This feedback for our student collected by my assistant, which is Anas. Sorry for this.
Don't worry, James, no problem.
Sorry for that. I don't know what's the problem. I may be in the net. So is now okay? Is it okay now?
Yeah, we can see
Okay.
it fine, James, yeah.
Yeah, so this, I will show you the outcome for the questionnaire. That is a feedback for our students to show their impact, or to show the impact of the online learning system at our college. I mean, for the engineering student engineering student. I'll talk shortly about that. What's this? I think it's a problem. The University of Duhok is established in 1999 and College of Engineering for the University of Duhok, and we have 1,500
Sorry, James, for interrupting you.
Students, 7 departments. As a whole, we have 22,000 students at our university. Yes.
Sorry, James. It's probably a suggestion to turn your video off, because I think it's probably using up some bandwidth, because your voice is coming in and out of signal. And just
Could be
share
an
the
idea right now,
presentation.
maybe, James.
I don't know what's the problem. Is
That's
it okay now?
Yeah,
Okay.
just leave it on the
Okay.
presentation. There we go.
So, yes, so we have 22,000 students at the university, and I think it's a problem. And 8% of them are refugees from Syria, and 10% of them are displaced people, students are part of Iraq, such as, and our student is around 1,450 students. And we have teaching our college traditional learning system, which is courses, and nowadays we are going to adopt Bologna system in our process, which is a system that's selected by most of the European universities. Okay. So as I mentioned on February, on the last February, or the February this year, the learning system is changed from the on-campus to the online, depending on the model on our media. So we had a curfew started in the first or the 11th of March this year, and after that we started with the online teaching system at our college. So at the end of the course, or online course, we are going online oral exam. They should have for the assessment instead of the paper-based exam. What's the outcome, briefly, what's the outcome of this teaching system, I mean online teaching system after COVID-19 on our student teaching learning capacity? So they gained a new experience with the online learning system and developing teaching skills and tools. So they have introduced to the new teaching systems, such as feeding or the learning via the online videos or online slides. Also, we have they have learned also the using of the recently or the modern teaching systems such as a Moodle and video conferences and so on. I should say this. Okay. So this is the outcome of the questionnaire that is provided by me and my assistant Anas. Around 500 students are participated in this questionnaire, and 4% of them are from the refugee, which is Syrian student. Those are living in the camps in the Duhok city and the countryside of Duhok, and 9% of them are displaced people from another part of Iraq. Okay, so 9% is a displaced people. Sorry, 10% displaced from the other part of Iraq, and the rest are the local community of the Kurdistan region cities. Okay. So the gender of these participants are as follows. We have 48% as a female, so male and other female. So we have gender equality here. Okay. Time spent by student for the e-learning. Okay, we ask the student, how long do you spend for the e-learning per day? I'm for course per day. So more than 60% of them spend more than 1 hour because they have per semester. That's why they should spend 1 or 2 hours per day for the e-learning for the engineering courses, and others are less than 1 hour. Okay. Okay, this is important stats. So, hello Emma, is it okay now? Are you
James,
hearing
I
me?
was just going to say, yeah, if you want to turn off your video,
okay.
I think it'll be easier.
We have asked it. Okay.
Yeah, I think it just is with the bandwidth low, it will be easier.
Let's turn off video. Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Thanks, James.
So this bar chart is very important to show the impact of the online learning system for the engineer. So to be easily complete the assignment. If you look to the refugee, so they have a minimum percentage. So we have 36 of them are agree with our question. Okay, so 36 of them of the refugee are agree to be able to manage their time with using the online learning system. Because their situation maybe is difficult, they are living in the camps, and as Will mentioned, that they face some problems in the internet or in the electricity and so forth. And the high percentage is 44, which is for local community. Displaced people also, their percentage is 39. So those people also is living in the camps, so that they maybe their situation is similar to the refugees. Is the online and on-campus learning same for you? So it's more than 75% disagree. So they prefer on-campus than the online. Maybe it's the first time for them to to have an online teaching. So our student and our teacher prefer the on with our question. Okay, another question is related to the social worry about. Okay, that's all. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your attention. If there is any question, I'm ready.
Thank you very much, James
Thanks,
and
James.
Will, for your presentation. So we'll just see now if there's any questions.
Actually, I have one myself, James. How difficult was it for some of the students in terms of access to the hardware and being able to work remotely in terms of access to the internet for people to physically be able to work? Was that a big challenge encountered by many people, or how did that work?
Yeah, sure. It's first time for us to have the online teaching system in the Iraq as a whole. But for the Kurdistan region, we already are, more specifically for our university or University of Duhok, we already have a model, and so we already had online assignment for a student. So when the crisis began in the March 2020, so we faced some problems, especially with the student in camps, you know.
Yeah.
Because some of them are refugee and other are displaced people. For those students, we actually help them. We give them more time to submit their assignment, to join our classes. We had night class, you know. Sometimes the teachers give them a night class started at 9 p.m. Yeah.
Okay.
So in this way, we can manage our online teaching.
Yeah, and to facilitate. Great to know. Thanks, James.
Yeah.
So we have another question for you from Finbar. I'm just going to allow him to speak. So Finbar, you should be able to ask James your question there.
Okay, James, thanks for the presentation there. Just one question. Did all the students have to return home, or were any able to stay in the college accommodation?
Actually, thank you for this question. Actually, when the COVID-19 start in the Duhok city, our dormitory was empty. So all the students went to their homes, and nobody in the campus.
Okay.
Nobody. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, and we have another question from Maurice. You should be able to ask your question there now.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can.
Hi. Just wondering whether COVID-19 has required the redesign of communal parts of camps to ensure social distancing, particularly in eating areas, or has it not really been tested yet because it's so new?
I can actually come in here. Because of the Morris, yeah?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
How you doing, Morris? How are you? Yeah, actually, it was an area I didn't touch on because of the shortness of the presentation, to be honest. But there is a whole set of rules and regulations around COVID-19 and mitigation measures which are through all the camps. So if I'm not mistaken, there was one person from Darashakran Refugee Camp which was confirmed positive, COVID-19 positive. He wasn't even in the camp, by the way, had been outside the camp, was kept outside the camp, but the camp was actually put on lockdown back in April. Yeah. So it's highly regulated for sure, highly regulated. So what we would hear people back home in Ireland talk about, there was a lockdown for a few weeks. Here there's mini lockdowns happening, small, short lockdowns. So we've had about 3 or 4. James can correct me here. Even up to recently, James is in Duhok Governorate, I'm in Erbil Governorate. We couldn't even travel between governorates up to very recently. So it's highly regulated here for sure.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions?
Actually, I have got one for James. James, if you don't mind, I do have actually just one small question about the refugees or IDPs who are attending University of Duhok. How do they get to and from the University of Duhok? Do we know?
Sorry?
The students, the refugee students and IDPs, how do they actually transport to and from their camps?
Yes, actually on the campus we have dormitories, big dormitories, so the university provides for them a place in the dormitories in the Duhok University campus. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Okay. Curious, thank you.
No worries.
If there's no more questions, then I'll pass you over to Emma. I'm just going to say a few words.
Yeah. Oh, God, sorry about that. There we go. Second time's charm. Thanks very much, Aoife. Huge thanks to Will and James for joining us today and taking time out of their busy schedules to present for us. And this is the last, just to let you know, this is the last of our summer webinar series. So we will be taking a break for the month of August, but we will be back from the 2nd of September, Wednesday, 2nd September, with a range of new hosts. So on the 2nd, we will be kicking off with Peter Clancy, who is the CEO of Lochry Distillery based in Longford, and he'll be talking about pivoting and diversifying supply chains and production in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. So Lochry Distillery diversified from producing gin and whiskey to producing hand sanitizer and now dispensers, and are working with a local engineering company to distribute across Ireland. So yeah, will be a very interesting one to start with, and we'll have then a host of speakers talking on a diverse range of topics such as degrowth and resilience, building earthquake resilient structures, and the importance of nature education in schools for resilience. So it will be a very mixed range of hosts, and we hope you'll be joining us again come September. Well, obviously I'll be back in touch in late August to confirm the schedule and our upcoming speakers. But in the meantime, thanks so much for joining us again for this summer installment. We hope you've really enjoyed it. We've certainly been delighted to have you here with us. I know it's all a bit strange because we can't kind of see each other, but you know, I've seen the names of people coming back each week, and you know, we're delighted to have you with us. So thanks again to James and Will, and we'll look forward to seeing you back in the autumn.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
keep safe and well, everyone.
Cheers.
Thanks very much, guys.